call this insurance meeting to order. Welcome everybody. Ask that you turn your cell phones to silent. I'd like to introduce some pages. We've got Joseph Kate, fifth grade at Donahue, sponsored by Ben Robbins. Raise your hand over there. Thank you for being here with us. We've got John Wayne Pliant, if I said that right, eighth grade, Woodville High School, sponsored by Representative Richie Wharton. And then we've got Hannah Cottrell, 11th grade, Opelika High School, sponsored by Alan Baker. And then last but certainly not least, with this meeting, I felt the need to have personal security, so I've hired my son Jameson. There's my personal security detail. And Jameson goes to Evangel Christian School in Alabaster. This time I'd ask Representative Sellers to lead us in prayer and remind him to mention Brett Easterbrook's not going to be with us today. His son was in an accident. He's going to be fine, but it was a serious enough accident that he's not going to be able to be here. So we'll remember him in our prayers as well.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for our opportunity of conducting your business, and we thank you, oh God, for every person that is here. Lord, we want to lift up Representative Easterbrook's son, that he will have speedy recovery and all will be well. Bless us, oh God, in Jesus' name, amen.
And thank you for that. The clerk will call the roll.
Representative Ellis.
Here.
Representative Easterbrook. Representative McCampbell. Representative Blackshear.
Here.
Representative Brown. Here. Representative Colvin. Here. Representative Ensler. Here. Representative Faulkner.
Here.
Representative Keel. Here. Representative Sellers.
Here.
Representative Woods.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you for that. So we'll get started with the first bill on the agenda is HB 8 by Representative Brown. There you are. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a committee sub too. So what this bill does currently under Alabama law, there's no regulations regarding limitations on the time frame that in property and casualty insurance company has to give notice to a consumer. What this does, it sets forward a time frame that actually puts us more in line with what they do in Mississippi and Louisiana. I think it's fair to consumers because that way it prevents an insurance company from just dropping you and not giving cause and just leaving the state or leaving you hanging without coverage. And so what this does, it'll provide consumers the opportunity when they get that written notice, it'll give them 30 days before they are able to cancel a policy. And I think it's good policy for the state because it provides consumers with the opportunity to go out and find another carrier and not just be left hanging, particularly in storm season.
Representative Faulkner.
Chip, I think, did you have this bill last year too?
No.
Or is it just this year?
Just this
okay.
Year. Yeah,
insurance department, where's the insurance department on this?
They are, they're favorable to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
And before we go further, I'd like for us to adopt the sub, since there's a sub on this, if we could get a motion. All right. All right, we've got a motion and a second to adopt the sub. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we're on the bill as substituted. Any other questions? Got a motion from Representative Colvin, second by Sellers, for a favorable report. Is there any other discussion? Being none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? HB 8 receives a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
And I'd like to thank Representative Brown. I know you put a lot of work into this and a lot of compromise went back and forth, so thank you for your diligent work on that. So
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I will turn the meeting over to Representative McCampbell since I've got the next bill.
Okay, the
Actually,
clerk will call the next bill.
House Bill 221.
All right. Thank you for the recognition. So HB 221 is an insurance department bill that we got a little bit later. We'd have done it with the first batch, but it basically, and I'm gonna let Heather Lowe explain a little bit more about it, but there's internal code references that we found in error, if I'm saying that right. And so we're just clearing up those code references. Is that a fair statement? Yeah.
Ms. Lowe, you have the podium.
Yeah, if there's questions, there may not. Did I state that fairly and correctly?
You did, Chairman.
Okay, all right, good. So if anybody has any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Lowe?
This is a department bill, yes.
Okay. Moved by Blackshear, second by Sellers, to give the bill a favorable report. All in favor, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposers have the same right. The ayes have it. The bill has a favorable report.
I'm gonna carry the next two as well.
You carrying the next?
Yep.
Okay. All right, the clerk will call the next bill on the calendar.
Senate Bill 46.
All right, Mr. Chairman, you have it.
All right, this should be fairly easy. This is the exact same bill that we've already passed out of this committee and passed out of the, off the
That's
House
enough,
floor.
Mr. Chairman. Can I get a motion? I got a motion by Blackshear,
Second.
second by Woods. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Opposers have the same sign. The ayes have it. We have a favorable on SB 46. The clerk will call the next bill.
Senate Bill 47.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
Do I hear a motion?
Can I hear a motion? This is the same
It's the same
one.
bill that we
Same
passed
one we
out of here
passed a
before.
couple of weeks ago. Motion by Blackshear, second by Seller. Seller second. All in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Opposers have the same. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. SB 47 has a favorable report. Turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Representative McCampbell. All right, now, so we'll enter the public hearing portion of this on HB 238 by Rigsby. It is the committee's intent to vote at the end of this public hearing. Representative Rigsby, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it works for the chairman, do I just call for a motion now? Is that? I'm just kidding.
I don't think it's quite that easy.
Yeah, I don't think
on
this was going to work that way.
Yeah.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 238. It is called the Fair Meds Act. This is a bill that we've worked on to increase the access of health care, specifically in rural areas of Alabama. You're going to hear a lot of things today. A lot of people are going to talk about this bill from different perspectives. At the end of the day, pharmacists provide a necessary service to the people of Alabama. This bill will require PBMs, which stands for Pharmacy Benefit Managers. They're the middlemen between a healthcare plan and a pharmacy, and then the end user, the patient, that manages prescription plans and prescription benefits. This would require them to pay a benchmark index price, which is the actual acquisition cost, which is determined by Alabama Medicaid. Pharmacies are required to participate in this benchmark pricing. What happens is they'll send a letter to a pharmacy and ask for a month's worth of invoices of what those pharmacies actually pay for those drugs in Alabama. And then they will determine that price based off of that. On top of that, this bill would require them to pay that benchmark index price plus a dispensing fee. This is the same model that Alabama Medicaid currently uses. It's a cost plus model. It is not a tax on the patient. This is a cost of doing business. In business, if you are selling cups and that cup costs you $1 and somebody says, I'm willing to pay you $1 for that cup, all of you in business would go, no, I have to have something on top of that to take care of my employees, my light bill, all of my expenses. That's what this cost plus model is. It's the cost of the drug plus the cost of doing business. And right now that's $10.64 is what that would be. This also defines that it's a transparent cost. Currently, there's several ways that costs can be determined in pharmacy. Some of them can be determined very easily. Some of them can never be determined. Everybody in this model would know exactly what those drugs cost that patient, what it costs the employer, what it costs the PBM, in some instances, what it's going to cost the state. It will not be a guesstimate of what price medications are going to cost. This is an index price list. It's a public list. It also allows pharmacists to have open communication without restriction to their patients. It does remove some exclusion and applies to all PBMs, not medical plans, but directly to PBMs only. This is what this piece of legislation would do. It also allows the Department of Insurance to have some better enforcement of the Pharmacy Audit Integrity Act. It allows employers the full benefit of knowing the rebates that are generated from their prescription plans. Currently, the way rebates work in the medical or the pharmacy kind of chain of command, we don't know who's getting what. And this says that the employer gets the full benefit. And it also determines that the ownership of the drug data file that's produced for a specific plan belongs to the employer or the payer of the plan. But at the end of the day, this is an access issue. If pharmacies can't get paid for the service and the products that they supplied, at a bare minimum, we're going to lose pharmacies. There's a lot of talk about rural healthcare, specifically rural hospitals, and how we have to provide some gap coverage. We have to provide a way for them to stay in business. We have to provide a way for them to get paid for what they do in their areas of service. Pharmacists are the number one accessible healthcare provider in the whole healthcare service. How many people see their pharmacist once a month? Sometimes once a week. When I had my pharmacy, which I actually sold in February of 23 because of this very issue, I had patients I saw twice a week. They would come in and some would just talk. Some would ask me, what do you recommend for this? Hey, I've got this rash. You think I need to see my doctor? Pharmacists are the most accessible healthcare provider in the healthcare plan. We have to protect them. We have to show them that they're valuable to these patients, that they provide a valuable service, and also it provides economic impact to our state. One of the answers you may hear is, well, if pharmacies go away, they'll just go to mail order. Mail order where? Out of state? We're going to send all of this business out of state when we could have had it in state? So I hope that you will consider that today. I'll stop here and then sit down and let other people talk. And if there's any questions for me at the end, I'll be welcome to come back up and answer any questions.
Okay.
Or if you have questions now.
Well, Representative Faulkner said he may have to leave, so we certainly want to accommodate
Sure.
Representative Faulkner's schedule.
I have another committee meeting right after this, so I apologize. I know.
I'm kidding. Go ahead with your question.
I apologize. Representative Rigsby, understand, I've heard from a number of pharmacists on this bill, including my local pharmacist. I think you covered this, and I think I found it in the bill, but talk to me about the $10.64 fee
Sure.
that is on here, and it says equal to the professional dispensing fee paid by the state under Title, what is that, 14 or what am I, no,
Yes, sir.
19, what is that?
They can do an assessment to determine what the cost of filling a prescription is. And so what they do is it's a national assessment that they look at to see how much does it cost to actually fill a single prescription. So that includes the labor, that includes the bottle that you put it in, it includes the software that you have to print it and document everything, it includes the label that's printed. The whole amount of cost is an average cost that's determined, and that's set by that statute. And they can reevaluate that from time to time. Other states just pick an arbitrary number. There's a few other states who've done this. Some it's $12, some it's $14, some it's $8. So we want to set a price that it's a determined amount through this statute, that, it's just not some arbitrary number. It is what kind of the market value is of what it costs to fill a prescription.
Okay. And is that what Medicaid?
Correct. Same model as Medicaid.
Okay. And the average, I'm sure I've got the right term, the average, is it acquisition?
It's actually actual acquisition cost.
Tell me, and I know it's defined, but
Correct.
Explain that to me.
So that's what I was talking about, where a pharmacy is required to send in their invoices. And so you're talking retail pharmacies, home infusion pharmacies, hospital pharmacies. Anybody that's in the Medicaid network can be required to send in those invoices. So not everybody buys the same in that situation. You may buy drugs cheaper than I can buy drugs, but they average that cost. So it's not a national average. There's something called NADAC, which is a national average. But this is looking at strictly Alabama pharmacies buying drugs in Alabama. And so they average that cost for that specific NDC number, which identifies that drug, the size of the bottle, strength of the medicine, and they say this is the cost of what this is going to be paid for in Alabama. Now you may say, well, that sounds good. I mean, you may buy better, so you may make $2 because you bought better on that script, but I may buy worse on this one, and it still may average out to a net zero income. Pharmacists still can't, no business can operate if you're at net zero.
All right. So probably the biggest thing that I've heard those in opposition talk about this being a cost.
Correct.
A cost on the citizens of Alabama.
Correct.
Can you address that? I mean, this idea that if we set this price, and really, I guess the fee on top of it,
yes, sir,
of $10.64, that is something that's going to be passed on to the citizens.
Well,
that's what I have heard from those that oppose this bill.
So that's the choice of the PBM to do that. They can pass on, if there is an increased cost, to the end user through premiums, through copays, whatever they decide to do. If they have an increased cost and they want to offset that by passing that along, that may happen. There are other states who've done this that actually have shown cost savings. Many state plans. I had a study sent to me last night in Texas. There's a state plan who have actually done a study, and they are saving hundreds of thousands of dollars by going to this model based off the current model that they're paying under their PBM plan. I can't say there's not going to be a cost. There very well may be a cost to this. But if they're underpaying us and now they have to pay us, there's going to be an increase. If they're underpaying, which is what's happening now, and you're going to hear from some pharmacists today that will give you exact examples of, we paid $300 for this drug, we were reimbursed $180. If that's happening and now the PBM has to pay $300, there's an increased cost. So the PBM gets to decide how they're going to offset that with the health plan. So it may be increased premiums, it may be increased costs at the counter. But the argument there is they get to do that. If a pharmacist's costs change, we don't get to do that. We don't get to say, oh, that cost me $5 more. Now you have to pay $5 more.
I guess, the thing that I understand about what you're saying with our pharmacies and value mine greatly.
Right.
Very much.
Right.
And do not want to lose that.
Right.
At the same time, I'm trying to balance this with the people of Alabama paying increased cost.
Sure.
And that's what I guess we'll hear about.
Sure.
Yeah. And I ask this of really every bill that comes before this committee, have for years, is the insurance department on board? Where is the insurance department on this bill?
We met with them yesterday, and they have some reservations about the enforcement piece.
Okay.
Because this was a piece of legislation that was introduced to them last year, and we were asked to hold off on it. So it was kind of a surprise to them when it got dropped last week, because we had been in negotiations with another entity, hoping to come to some agreements, and that didn't happen. And so it was kind of a surprise to them. And so they have some questions about the enforcement piece.
Are you going to work with them on that?
We've met with them, and I told them they'd be happy to work with that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Representative
Thank
Faulkner.
you, Representative.
So now, Representative Rigsby will enter the public here and let the public speak on this. Of course, I know that everyone will, but everybody, please remain respectful to the other side, even though we disagree. Sometimes we got to agree to disagree, so everybody try to be respectful to the other side. And with that, we will limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. If there's an opportunity to not repeat what another speaker has said, there's no shame in saying I agree with what that guy or lady said. So, but let's do limit it 3 minutes. I will keep the timer and let you know when your 3 minutes are up, and we'll start. And there's no order here, but James Jones, who's a pharmacist, it says, and speaking in support. Yes, we'll circle back with questions at the end, yes. Floor is yours, Mr. Jones.
Good morning. Thank you guys for having me here today. Representative Rigsby, thank you for sponsoring this bill. As a practicing pharmacist, as one who owns 5 pharmacies, 5 independent pharmacies, some in rural communities, I want to tell you that I want to reiterate everything Mr. Rigsby said. We continue, and I want to present you with some real-life examples. In one of my stores, we hear about increased cost, and I'm sure you're going to hear that from a lot of people today who oppose this bill. But you start talking about increased costs, and then if you could see the transparency of the rebate system in place and the volume of profit that some of the PBMs and insurance companies are making, this would give you a little bit clearer understanding of why they're using a strong arm against people like us who sometimes seem defenseless. They force contracts on us that if we don't take it, a big chain can. But I'm basically here today to give you a real-life example of some situations that come up, and I just chose one of my pharmacies to present this. Access to care. How long are we going to be able to take care of our patients if we continue to get paid under our cost for the medication? We can't stay in business. I've got 5 pharmacies. I employ about 50 people. That's 50 people that'll lose their job or have to go somewhere else. We're not really concerned about that today in this situation, but you hear about increased costs to the public. One of my pharmacies got a call from a pediatrician. I was actually there about 3 months ago. UAB in Birmingham. 2-year-old child ready to come home on Saturday morning. This child, won't bore you with the history, needed some medication. Pediatrician, he called 12 pharmacies in the area, couldn't find it. She said, "You're my last resort." I said, "Let me see what I can do." Within 30 minutes, I called her back on her cell phone. I said, "Send that patient home." She said, "Thank you. I would have had to keep him until Monday." For what cost that patient $50, they were able to come home from UAB back to Prattville in 2 hours, get out of the hospital 2 days early, save that insurance company probably $10,000 to $12,000, over $50. There's so many examples like that. But in one of my stores, the month of February, 434 prescriptions paid what we call underwater. They reimbursed us less on 400 and something prescriptions than what we actually paid for the drug. And with 5 pharmacies, I have a pretty aggressive buying plan. But just one example, Eliquis, a blood thinner. Patient's got to have it, 90-day supply. My cost, $1,660.17. They made the patient pay $23. Their reimbursement was $1,594. I lost $43.15 on that prescription. Another prescription, this is for something for their stomach. Insurance paid nothing. Patient paid nothing. They reduced my cost, and I lost $38.14 on the purchase of that prescription. I can go on and on and on with examples that I've got here. Inhalers for COPD patients. Now, these are just drug products.
And your time has expired.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you hearing our concerns.
Thank you. Next, speaking in opposition, Debbie Lynn with Easter Seals.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me. I'm Debbie Lynn. I'm the Executive Director of Easter Seals Central Alabama in Montgomery. Easter Seals is an organization that has 7 vocational rehab centers around the state, including Camp Asca. We serve thousands of families with children with disabilities and adults with disabilities. I'm here to talk specifically about the impact of this bill on families, the families that we serve. It's interesting that it's Disability Advocacy Day today, and I'm proud to be able to advocate for families who are touched by disability. But let's just take an average family that comes to Easter Seals, and let's just say that they have a child with autism. And it's not uncommon for a family to have multiple children with autism because it has a strong hereditary factor. You've got a family that's going to require a physician, is going to be dealing with mental health issues, behavioral issues, and developmental issues. And each one of those disciplines requires their own providers. And all of those providers have copays, have deductibles, and oftentimes these kids are impacted by gut issues. They don't sleep, they don't eat, so they have multiple prescriptions that they're having to rely on just so that their child can sleep, whatever it is, can eat. And to put an assessment on each of those prescriptions to increase their cost, these families are not accessing these providers every now and then. A typical family who comes to Easter Seals whose child has a developmental delay is coming a minimum of twice a week to speech and a minimum of one time a week with occupational therapy. So, you know, if their copay is $13 a visit, usually it's $21 a visit. They're paying nearly $75 a week just in therapy. And then you put on top of that the physician's visits, the trips to the pharmacist for their medication. It's just devastating to many families. My staff, we have 400 staff members across the state that work for Easter Seals. They choose to work at Easter Seals because they have a passion for what they do. They make lower than what they can make in the private sector. I talked to many of them today. They can't deal with an additional $10.64 assessment. And I can assure you it's going to be passed down to the consumer. And these are middle-class families who are working. And I don't know if y'all go to the grocery store or who in your family goes to the grocery store, but you can't buy 10 items now that cost less than $75. I mean, this is not an answer to have middle-class families fix a problem that they didn't create. I am not a stranger to reimbursement rates. I take insurance and Medicaid, and I can assure you Medicaid can increase their reimbursement rate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next, Audrey Newton, speaking in support.
Good morning. My name is Audrey Newton, and I'm a pharmacist and co-owner of Chad's Payless Pharmacy in Florence. Our pharmacy is located 2 blocks from Riverbend Center for Mental Health. I've spent the entirety of my 20-year career working closely with this special population. In 2003, a drug entered the marketplace that drastically changed the lives of many patients suffering from schizophrenia. It was the first of many to come along in a long-acting class of injectable medications that have enabled these patients to live normal lives. Although expensive, the cost of these medications is minimal compared to the countless hospitalizations that occur in this population. I have a patient that gets an injectable filled and administered at my pharmacy every month. The cost of this drug is over $3,300, but I am only paid $3,000, and we receive nothing for the administration. In 1 year, 1 patient, 1 drug, I lost $3,600. Last year, this patient wrote a novel that was published and is now available for purchase on Amazon. I'm in an impossible situation. Due to the gag clause in our insurance contract, I am not allowed to tell him that filling this medication that allows him to function normally in society, achieve his goals, earn a living, and write a book is putting me out of business. Most pharmacists would tell the patient they just can't get it. Imagine that you have a child suffering from some form of mental illness and cannot find a pharmacy willing to get the medication they need because the insurance is underpaying them. Pharmacists are caring and compassionate, and many are continuing to fill these medications at a loss. This is why so many pharmacies have closed their doors. I can no longer take on these patients at a loss, not just patients suffering from mental illness, but patients with other chronic health conditions. Over the past years, our corner of North Alabama has lost 13 pharmacies. I don't sleep well at night, having to choose between turning these patients away and letting my family pharmacy close its doors. If that happens, I can't help anyone. I promise you, you do not want to live in communities without pharmacies and the services they provide. Your constituents that need this bill the most are not the ones that are going to call you and ask you to support this legislation, but Alabama lives depend on it. I want my legacy to be helping the sick in my community. Let your legacy be the solution to this problem. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Robin Stone, Alabama Healthcare Consumers.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am Robin Stone, the Executive Director of the Alliance of Alabama Healthcare Consumers. The Alliance represents the perspective of Alabama employers of all sizes in both the public and private sector that provide or administer health care benefits for their employers. Employers acknowledge and appreciate the important role that Alabama's pharmacists play in the state's health care delivery system and our communities. They are vital in our communities. I love my pharmacist. His name is Nick. He's a great guy, and he does a wonderful job. The Alliance strongly objects to HB 238, and we encourage this committee to pause and consider the immediate and broad range impact of this unprecedented legislation before taking it any further. Over 2.75 million Alabamians receive health care benefits at their workplace. This legislation would affect all of them, as well as the employers that provide those benefits. HB 238 would have significant cost impact on your constituents and the local employers in your district. Alabama families are buckling under the weight of increased cost of living. This legislation adds more weight to their burden. HB 238 asks the state of Alabama to enact a reimbursement structure that guarantees pharmacies will be profitable on their core business of dispensing prescription drugs. HB 238 is a camouflage government tax on every Alabamian who gets a prescription filled. To my knowledge, there is not another healthcare provider or any other profession or business in the state that is guaranteed a profit. If this bill is enacted, there will undoubtedly be a long line of providers asking for the same subsidies and government issues on their overhead costs. We all know that nothing is free. These costs won't simply be absorbed by insurance carriers, and insurance benefits are paid by hardworking Alabamians through their premiums. They will bear the cost of this new tax. So let's talk about who will pay more so pharmacists can be paid more. This bill would add $10.64 on every prescription that is filled in Alabama for everybody every time they have a prescription filled. That tax will come back to consumers and employers in their future premiums or at the counter. This bill would add $275 per year for every person in Alabama with drug benefits. For a family of four, that annual cost is $1,100 a year. This legislation was only introduced last week, but preliminary estimates on cost said it would add $800 million in annual cost to consumers and employers that have prescription drug benefits. That money is earmarked to pharmacies for a dispensing fee and no defined purpose. What's not mentioned in this bill is what, if anything, this new bill does to help consumers. This bill doesn't mention improving healthcare outcomes, better customer service, or additional pharmacies opening in rural areas. There's nothing in this legislation that speaks specifically to any of those areas. What's
Mr.
also
Stone,
not in this
the
legislation.
time's expired.
Thank you, Mr.
Sorry.
Chairman. Appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. All right, next, Josh Harden, pharmacist.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Good morning. My name is Josh Harden. I'm a pharmacist and I'm an owner of Mills Pharmacy. We're in Jefferson, Tuscaloosa, and Greene counties. Our opponents are arguing that this will increase costs. To counter this argument, I would ask that you examine the model of Alabama Medicaid's prescription drug program. Fiscal year 2021, Medicaid spent $1,730 per recipient for pharmacy drug costs. At that same time, across the United States, the cost of care for a prescription drug recipient was roughly $2,500 to $3,000. But Medicaid paid its providers fairly. They paid us the average acquisition cost of the drug plus 1064. How'd they do that? How are they staying solvent? There's a lack of PBM involvement there. Alabama Medicaid's process is 100% transparent. You want to know what they pay for the drug? You want to know what the average acquisition cost of the drug is? That's publicly available. You want to know how much of a rebate they're receiving on a drug and where that's going? That's publicly available. They've got a staff of about a dozen and a half people. They're genuinely concerned with the viability of the system, including the providers. They're not concerned with shareholder revenue. The manufactured complexity and the opacity and the perverse incentives of a PBM model are notably absent. Alabama Medicaid manages one of the most unhealthy patient populations in the state, and they do it on a remarkably low budget while remaining solvent and paying fair rates to pharmacies. This strongly implies that the opponents to this bill's argument of increased cost is false. They're 100% dependent on a lack of transparency. And if the veil was lifted tomorrow on everything that they are keeping opaque in their contracts, everyone, including the employer groups with the business alliances in the state, would have a lot of questions that those guys don't want to answer, because that's money that's all going across state lines to 3 gigantic PBMs. As long as it remains opaque, that's the way it's going to be, guys. Transparency and accountability for PBMs will benefit the patients, it'll benefit the businesses, and it'll benefit the economy of this state. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Next, Matt Barkley, speaking in opposition.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Barkley, and I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer for Great Southern Wood Preserving in Abbeville, Alabama. Great Southern Wood has over 1,900 team members across 13 states and 20 locations. Here in Alabama, we have over 800 team members, which represent 2,400 Alabamians stretching from Mobile to Northport. Great Southern manages its own self-funded health plan for all of our eligible team members, and we work very hard to manage all aspects of that plan so our team members have effective and affordable medical, prescription, and vision coverage. While we agree that pharmacy costs in the U.S. are out of control, we come before you in opposition to House Bill 238 because it does nothing to solve the greater problem with rising pharmacy costs. In fact, it removes the PBM's ability to effectively negotiate with drug producers and distributors to get the best cost for our team members. House Bill 238 specifically defines the costs paid by an individual pharmacy for a drug, does not allow for the cost to be challenged or questioned. Pharmacies will simply pay the standardized costs, and the plan sponsors, us, will bear the brunt of it. And our team members are going to bear the brunt of it. Because when we calculate the real financial impact to our plan to each team member, it's staggering, especially when you consider the inflation we're already experiencing. We estimate if this bill were to pass and we limit our PBM's ability to negotiate, we'll have about a $2.1 million impact to our plan on an annual basis. When we break that down, each team member is going to be faced with a $1,405 extra coming out of their pocket. $1,405 on top of higher food, gas, and housing expenses. House Bill 238 also negatively impacts organizations as we have to implement core plan design changes. We actually incentivize our team members to patronize community pharmacies. I like Ryan, who works at Mike's Pharmacy, which is across the street from me. He and I have a relationship, and I have his cell phone number. Trust me, I don't want to hurt his business. We like him. We provide incentives to all of our team members to utilize these multiple PBMs. And frankly, if we do that, we've got to change the way we operate our plan, and it's going to have our pharmacies losing out. And finally, for the bill to pass, each time an employee has a prescription filled, it's an additional $10.64. So let me bring this home for you. We actually provide most antibiotics for our team members free, meaning if my daughter has an ear infection, I could stop by the pharmacy and pick up amoxicillin for literally $0. Now, do you think we're not going to pay $10.64 every time we have to fill that? So let's make that real. If I have 5 prescriptions, I have to fill it monthly. That's now $638.40 that I don't need to pay right now under our plan. So the real of this is it is a tax, is the way I feel about it. And again, I appreciate your time this morning, and I encourage you to vote no on House Bill 238. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Tiffany Simmons, speaking in favor.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Simmons. My husband and I own a pharmacy in Beauregard. We're located right outside of the Auburn, Alabama area. Opelika, Auburn area. We've been there about 12 years. I'm just going to give you one real example that happened about 3 weeks ago for a 9-week-old patient who, from the time she was born until when she came in, had suffered from gastric reflux horribly. Had been shipped to USA, University of South Alabama, for a gastric pediatric consultation. They put her on a liquid omeprazole. When the prescription came to us, it needed a PA, prior authorization, in order for her to even get this. On the day that the mom came in, the PBM, we had contacted them because we were losing about $100 on that script. And we had called the PBM just to say, hey, you know, did we do something wrong? What's it looking like on your end or what have you? And her response to us was that we didn't care about our patients. The mom came in. I get emotional over this because I have 3 kids. The mom came in crying because her baby had been spitting up blood for the last 3 weeks because she couldn't get the right dosing requirement to keep her breast milk or her formula in her. We gave the prescription to the mom. She paid $88 for it. She works for corrections facility in a county local to us. She works for the state of Alabama. This bill affects rural communities hugely. We went into Beauregard. You may or may not remember, but Beauregard was hit by an F4 tornado. I was out in the field picking up parts of families' lives. We worked our pharmacy practically 24 hours a day to take care of them, to make sure that those who had lost all their medicine, their IDs, their money, that everything was taken care of. Rural pharmacy is huge in the state of Alabama. Your rural communities are huge. They are your foundation. Not Montgomery, not Birmingham. It is your smaller rural communities. Thanks. I hope that y'all will support this for us so that we can continue to do what we do every single day. And when I leave here, I'm going to meet a gentleman to change out his Freestyle Libre because he can't do it himself and he can't get to my store to do it. That's what we do in rural pharmacy, is we take care of our patients. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Nia Scott with PHIP, speaking in opposition.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me this opportunity. I'm Nia Scott. I'm the Legislative Counsel for RSA and PHIP, and I have with me our Deputy Director, Joe Moore, our CFO, Diane Scott, and the PHIP Director, Dave Wells. For my Ways and Means Education Committee members, which there's a number of you on here, y'all are very familiar with PHIP. We provide health insurance to the active and retired educators and their dependents, and we cover about 300,000 lives. First, I want to point out we're not a PBM. We do use one, but we very tightly manage the PBM. And the problem that we have with this bill is that it's not going to hurt our PBM's bottom line with the reimbursement language. It's us as the payor. And that's the only issue we have with the bill is the reimbursement. Second, we want to let you know that we understand how important our community pharmacists are and to our members. And we already contract to provide higher reimbursement to those community pharmacists. We also try to work closely with our pharmacy groups to address any concerns that they may have. But just to note, one concern we do have is that this bill also applies to chain pharmacies. And we're still working on the numbers, but we think it could be the case that the reimbursements for the chains are going to go up, but because of our preferable payment structure, the reimbursements for the community pharmacies could go down under this, from PHIP at least. And we don't have solid cost estimates yet because the AAC model that Medicaid uses, we kind of have to manually do that. We're working on it. We got started on it as soon as we saw the bill last week. We have run kind of back of the envelope estimates based on NADAC, which is close, but it's not apples to apples necessarily. But we're looking at those numbers as what's the first year impact based on the current negotiation prices. We're worried about the long-term impact. What happens when you remove that control piece, when the people that are selling the drugs to the pharmacies know we have to pay whatever they're charging them plus a dispensing fee? And as my Ways and Means Education Committee members know, we've come 9 years in a row with level funding. And we're very concerned about how difficult this is going to make it for us to continue to manage the funding of the plan and providing the same level of benefits to members. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, speaking in opposition, Frank Clem.
Morning, I'm Frank Clem. I am a patient. I have 5 or 6 prescriptions, several I can get through my local pharmacy. I enjoy being able to talk to somebody I know, ask questions about whether these drugs interact or whatever like that. And many times I get good advice. Maybe they'll call back and talk to my doctor. They maintain that relationship with my doctor, and we can get that stuff figured out. We've got one prescription that I can't get through them. They lose money on it. It comes through the mail. Sometimes I don't know. I look at this box that comes in. It's got refrigerated stuff in there. Sometimes it's as hard as a rock because it's still frozen. Sometimes it's starting to get soft. Sometimes it's cracked. I don't know who's handled it. I would like to have that from my local pharmacy. I like to keep my local pharmacy in business because of all of that many benefits. It's just that personal touch because I know them and I can call them whenever I need to call them. This other, when I call on the phone, I'm going to get a robot. And then even if I get to talk to a person, it's not the same person I talked to last time. And sometimes every year it changes hands. And sometimes I may not get that on time, a 1 month prescription, once a month. And I may not get it in time because we can't get all the red tape out of the work. I want it to go through my pharmacy, is what I want. And I like the local pharmacy. I want to support that and make sure that we can keep them in business. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. And finally, Jessica Hung, speaking in support of.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity. My name's Jessica Hung, and I'm a pharmacist that's practicing in South Alabama. I work at several independent pharmacies located in rural areas, and one of the unique things that I get to do is I get to go into the community and provide immunization services and wellness screenings at different workplaces, senior centers, and low-income housing units. This is a service that other healthcare practitioners are not necessarily providing. In 2023, my team and I provided 2,000 immunizations and 3,000 wellness screenings in Mobile, Baldwin, Washington, and Escambia counties. We screen patients for diseases that are not often symptomatic, so patients may not know that they're at risk without getting these preventative health screenings. Many of the patients that we serve would not seek out these preventative health services if we were not going to them due to different issues such as transportation issues, educational barriers, or just simply convenience. After screening patients, we provide them with personalized education plans, including lifestyle modifications that they can use to improve their lab values and overall health. It's a joy for me to go out into the community and help these patients understand their health. And it's an even bigger joy for me to go to them year after year and see that what I am doing is impacting their health in a positive way. While I am out in the community serving our underserved patients, our pharmacies are fulfilling prescriptions and we are not even being paid for the cost of the medications we are giving to patients. This is not a sustainable business practice. Without being properly compensated, our pharmacies are going to go out of business, and our patients in the community would suffer if those doors close. I ask that you support the Fair Meds Act so that pharmacies in our state can continue to care for thousands of underserved patients in the community. We are the most accessible healthcare practitioners, and as you've heard today, we are going above and beyond because we care about our patients. Our patients deserve to have access to care in their community that they can depend on. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. That concludes the public hearing and public comment portion. So, Representative Rigsby, any comments? Do we have any questions? Representative Ensler.
Yes, sir.
So obviously we're hearing some say that this will raise costs for customers. Some are saying it's not. Have we seen a similar law in other states? And if so, do you know the impact on consumers in those places?
Yeah. So Tennessee has a variation of this law. West Virginia probably has the most comparable model. They didn't start it until it actually started last year. The preliminary numbers actually show a decrease in cost, but they're actually doing a study that we should have numbers by next year to prove that. The thing I mentioned earlier was a data analysis for Gregg County, Texas, and they looked at the current model that their PBM was under their health plan, and there was a decrease monthly cost from the current model of $136 to the cost plus model to $89.15. So a $50 savings, $40 savings per month going to this new model. So this, I mean, it is different. Kentucky has a bill just like this that they introduced this session as well. Almost identical language to what we're presenting today. So I don't know that I can give you definitive, hey, this is the model, it works, here's the numbers, but I can tell you preliminarily, we are seeing savings, not increased costs when we go to this model. It's a transparent model. We know what's going on, and it was mentioned earlier about rebates. Someone said that, you know, a health plan can negotiate with that PBM of who keeps what part of the rebate. You know, we might want to keep this part in our health plan so it decreases our premiums or it takes care of admin cost. They may come up with a percentage, but they don't know how much of those rebates are actually being kept by the PBM. I would hazard to say that if many of the businesses, some of which who spoke against the bill today, were to start asking questions, they would learn there's more savings in rebates than what even we're offering that might be a saving in this reimbursement structure. Nobody knows the answer. It was mentioned that there is no transparency. It is very opaque. Even the payers of the health plans don't see everything that's being done in an integrated plan of who's getting what money. So I can't say there's not going to be an increase. I don't have anything that guarantees that there's no increase to this. But I can't say there won't be a cost savings either. We don't know.
Okay, Representative Keel.
On the cost plus method of your reimbursement, what's the motivation of the people that you're buying from, the wholesaler or the manufacturer of the drug? What is the motivation for them not to just arbitrarily increase prices because they know you're going to get paid?
Right.
What keeps the market in check on that?
Well, there wouldn't be very much. I mean, the question has been: are we setting a floor? Are we setting a ceiling? What are we setting? You know, there would be other players at stake here because this is the same model that Medicaid's using, and so I don't see, you know, wholesalers going to bat to say, hey, we're going to increase costs across the board because Alabama gets better costs. We have not seen that in other states that have done this. The increased cost has not come along with this just because they set a reimbursement structure. To answer your question honestly, though, there would not be a check and balance in that system.
And so with Medicaid, can they arbitrarily increase their costs with them?
They could. Well, it's based, for them, it's just based off that actual acquisition cost. So it's the cost that Alabama pharmacies are paying. So if that cost were to go up, then they would have to make changes associated with that as well.
Okay, Representative Coleman.
Representative Riggs, help me understand the cost savings piece again. So right now, this will require the PBMs to pay the pharmacist the actual acquisition cost plus a 1064. So, I mean, right now, I mean, there's scripts you're losing money on. There's some you're profiting on.
Correct.
It's not every script that's affected like this. So you could argue that because of this, the PBMs could actually pay you less on some of those ones you're making a profit on. So that's where the cost savings could come into effect.
That's correct. I mean, there could be a decrease in reimbursement on certain medications. It goes back to my argument earlier is, you know, the argument is you make on some, you lose on some. It all washes out in the end, and you break even. Well, what business can stay open if you break even? You know, and so the cost plus model, you can look at it this way: cost of goods are being paid, a service fee is being paid. Some are calling it a tax, some are whatever it may be. No business functions if they just get paid cost of goods. If that's all they're making, they're no business. There has to be a reimbursement structure based off all the extra stuff that a pharmacist does, from immunizations that we don't get paid administration fees on, to medication therapy management that you may get a little bit of something on. There's so many services. Delivery. When I owned my pharmacy, I would go grocery shopping for patients who couldn't pick up milk. I didn't have to do that. I didn't get paid to do that. And the one lady I can think of, I actually lost a lot of money on her prescriptions. But that's what we do. So in this situation, it's cost of drugs with a payment for the service that you're providing. There is a cost for dispensing a medicine, not just the drug. You got to pay the pharmacist. You got to pay the technician. You got to pay your light bill. You got to pay for the pharmacy software. You have to pay for the bottle that it goes in. Those are not just made up cost. There's cost to doing business. And if you're just going to pay for the drug, there will be no business.
Yeah, and this is more of a comment than a question, but we hear the term tax, and this 1064 is not collected by the government. So
No.
I don't believe a tax is a necessary or a correct way to describe this. And we've also heard concerns that this will cost the state money, and I've never heard of a tax before that costs the state money. So I don't know if that's an accurate description. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I move to give this bill a favorable report.
Okay, we've got a motion, but I think I've got some more questions. Representative Blackshear.
Yes, sir.
I guess the first one, and this may go for Mr. Jones, maybe for you, and again, I'm just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. If I remember correctly, I think you said, and I was just scribbling some notes, that you had a total of your 5 stores, like 431 prescriptions that you didn't get dispensed back at the full amount that you paid for them. Was that accurate, what you said?
No. I picked one store to give you that example.
Okay, so one store was 431?
One store was 434 prescriptions.
Okay. What was your total dispense from that store?
About 6,000 prescriptions.
Per month?
5,500 to 6,000, yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to come up with a percent of what would already be getting reimbursed completely. All right, and I think this goes, and thank you for that. And I think this probably goes back, and Representative Rigsby or maybe Heather, you may can help with this. And as I get older, my memory kind of lacks me a little bit. But didn't we address this back in 2021 with some type of legislation that we were going to be implementing some type of policies and procedures to start addressing this? I'm curious, how's that going so far that's led us to this legislation being dropped? Again.
Good morning, and that's an excellent question. I was not with the department in 2021, but that was when the bill was passed in the legislature. Effective date was 2022. I can tell you it's been a long process because guess what? The Department of Insurance has never regulated PBMs before, so that is new to us. They had started in 22 with standing up the licensing piece. That was the initial part. The initial licenses started at $500. There's a provision in the law that allows you to recoup the cost through the licensing at renewals. We have to monitor the cost, do a restructure based off of a formula laid out in the bill. We have done that this past year. And so this is the first year they've paid anything that would have been above $500 to the department for this enforcement of this act. To date, we had 164 complaints from pharmacists that we were able to investigate 125 of them. Of those, we were only able to take 2 corrective actions based on the authority we currently had that resulted in 670 refunds totaling almost $700,000. We've tried to keep leadership apprised of our progress along the way. Last quarter, we issued 2 requests for proposals. We awarded the contracts to 2 companies. We are beginning our first full examination of 2 of the larger PBMs starting now. We will not be in their actual offices until March. That is expected to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. At that time, we're hoping that we have some more expertise with the contract company that we're working with. They have done this in other states, so they'll have a lot of best practices, so on and so forth. So that's where we stand at the department today.
So this passes, what does it do to that we've been working on for 18 months? And I guess that's part A of the question. And then the last part is this bill was just introduced and got first reading a week ago today, so the last Wednesday. How do we get to this bill with your department working with everybody to get back to where we are with this piece of legislation?
So we first saw the bill the same time everybody else did. So we are actually, I have pulled in someone from legal, someone from examinations, someone from our PBM section, as well as consumer services, because we all work together within the department. They are going over that with a fine-tooth comb to kind of see what really needs to be overhauled. I would argue that we still won't know that fully until a full examination is done. But that is what we had asked for so that we could actually come to you with a comprehensive recommendation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Blackshear, and one note of that, though, is what was done in 2018 was about audits, PBM audits of pharmacy, not reimbursements that we're talking about this. So this is a little bit different than what was done in 2018. There was no discussions about reimbursements in that.
Agreed. I'm just talking about the 2021 legislation, though, not 2018. So it's the third time we're trying to address the same topic. I just want to make sure we were clear.
Thank you. Representative McCampbell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I have a lot of concerns and a lot of questions and a lot of issues regarding this, and I see it from both sides. See, that's the thing. Until we can look at it from both sides of this issue, then I don't know that we can adequately handle this problem. I think you said that there had been some negotiations prior to the dropping of this bill. Am I correct?
We attempted to. We were talking with an entity trying to come up with some agreements to some things about the bill before we dropped it, but we did not come to anything.
Okay, and what entities? Because basically, from what I can read and from what I'm hearing, we have PBMs. You know, my first time hearing about all these acronyms, you know, they crazy.
Right.
But we have PBMs, and we are now, it seems like we're negotiating with the pharmacists, we have the manufacturers, but then we got the middleman.
And not one of them were represented today. No PBM was represented today.
So the PBM is not here to even, okay. And see, that's the problem.
Right. I agree with you.
That is the problem.
Right.
We are in a society right now where everybody is running after that green dollar, but they are willing to step on everybody else to get to it. That's where I have a problem. You know, I'm a backseat Baptist, so I ain't gonna be your best Baptist either. But the thing about it, even from the back seat, we're gonna still be trying to help somebody else rather than just run after the dollar. So my question is, what is the real compromise? You know, they are saying that this is not going to work, and you're saying that our small pharmacies, and see, I represent a rural area, so it's very important to me that our small pharmacies remain in these rural areas, because if you allow our small pharmacies to close in these rural areas, then I have people that don't have transportation to be able to get to a city where they can get theirs. You're saying, well, we're going to have mail-in. Most of them don't. We don't even have internet out in our area.
Right.
We don't have these things. So it's going to cause a lot of issues in my area if we don't do something. So now, I think we're going to allow this one to go forward, but I would encourage PBMs, wherever they may be, to get in touch with us and see if this can't work out before it gets to the floor of the House.
Well, the reason is to understand the process. You have the payer-employer, who's the administrator of the plan, which you heard from several today. Payer-employer. You have the end user, in this case, is the pharmacy. You have the benefit of the plan, being the patient. Then you got the middleman, as you said, the PBM setting all the rules. They're setting the rules for the payer and the employer. They're setting the rules of what they're going to pay the pharmacist. And they're telling the patient what access, and not only access, but what medicines they're going to pay for. And who's winning in that scenario? The PBM. They hold all the cards. So in this bill, what we're saying is you cannot underpay a pharmacy based off this index price. You can no longer do that. And we're saying if you're getting rebates that you're not passing along back to that employer to help them offset those costs, you've got to be 100% transparent about that. Now, this directly affects the PBM industry. How many of them came to speak today?
So this is a full disclosure thing, but Medicaid.
Right.
You're saying that you want to have something that would mirror somewhat the Medicaid method of paying.
Right.
And that, so apparently Medicaid is doing something right, huh?
When it comes to reimbursing pharmacies, they are.
You know, and we are talking about hospitals and the pressure that rural America is dealing with when it comes to hospitals, when it comes to people that are willing to come out into the rural area and work. I'm sorry about this, Mr. Chairman, but I'm on my rural kick right now because I see it every day out in rural Alabama, how the pressure is being put on the people in rural Alabama. And, you know, I'm inclined to let it go forward, but I would ask you to be open and for all these people that are having issues with it, you need to start seeking them out and try to find a solution rather than trying to stop something or just keep doing what you're doing. Because I'm tired of it. I tell you that. I don't know who else is, but I am. And I'm seeing it from not only this, but grocery stores. There were 3 in my community when I first started. When I moved into that community 20 years ago, there's 1 left, and now we got a big Walmart. That's what's happening to America. We are killing the small businesses. We are killing small people. And I'm tired of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Keel, I think, has got another.
I've got one more question about the reimbursement. So it's cost plus the $10 and change.
Right.
What about at the end? What happens with any rebates or coupons that the pharmacist gets on that prescription?
So the rebates coupons are not guaranteed. So that is based off the performance of that pharmacy, and that performance could include if I pay my bill to the wholesaler every 7 days versus 30 days, I may get 1/4 basis point. If I meet a generic compliance rate this month, so if I buy more generics percentage-wise than I do brand-wise, I may get 1/4 basis point. That is not always a guaranteed rebate. So that would go to the bottom line of the pharmacy.
But it is money you make off that prescription.
That it would be money that we make eventually somewhere down the road off that prescription. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We've got a motion for a favorable report by Colvin and a second by Woods. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Get a
Thank you,
favorable
Mr. Chairman.
report.
Thank you, committee.
Motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned.